You work hard every day to give your family the best. Your government should be there to help your family make ends meet. Grow our economy while protecting our environment for generations to come.
That's a taste of the new NDP TV ads that will be rolling out across the country beginning tomorrow. The party wants to capitalize on the recent success of the Alberta Party and a series of favorable polls there. The tone is upbeat and hopeful, but will Canadians be swayed, especially when the real barrage of political ads is yet to come? That's where we begin the Sunday Scrum this week. CBC's longtime parliamentary reporter Julie Van Dusen joins us in Ottawa. There with her is the Globe and Mail's John Ibbitson and Maclean's Magazine's Martin Patriquin joins us from Montreal. Hello to you all. So Julie, let's start off with you and welcome. And
thank you.
What do you think the strategy is here from the NDP with this ad?
Well, it's certainly not a Tim Hortons ad, because if it was the Conservatives, there'd probably be a Tim Hortons coffee cup there somewhere. He seems to be appealing to people who get up early, do an honest day's work. You know, the gentleman in the ad has got a dry cleaning business and he's rolling pastry. And it wraps up with Tom Mulcair. I'm not sure how much of the ad was on the air, but he's sitting in kind of a high-end coffee shop. It looks like some kind of fancy schmancy coffee shop that's certainly not Tim Hortons, and there's books behind him. So he's looking smart, but casual, no tie, but lots of books. So obviously he reads a lot, and he's so smart he can balance the economy and clean up the environment at the same time. So that appeals to a lot of people.
All right, John, what do you make of it?
Well, there's a couple things. First of all, he says at the end of the ad that I'll stand up for the middle class. Everybody's standing up for the middle class. Justin Trudeau released a tax cut in which he takes from the rich and gives to the not quite so rich because he wants to stand up for the middle class. And of course, Stephen Harper has been going on about the middle class ever since he became leader of the Conservative Party. I don't know about the rest of the society, but it's great if you're middle class. The risk, though, is the NDP doesn't have that much money. The Conservatives are out fundraising them, always have out fundraised them, and the Liberals too. And to be running television ads this early in the election pre-season means that there'll be less money available for them in July and August before the campaign actually begins. Obviously, they feel that they're on a roll. There's momentum. The NDP win in Alberta, the rising fortunes of the NDP federally in polls, and that they should spend the money now and hope that it pays off later.
Marty?
Yeah, interesting pivot away from the stuff that happened this week. You know, Harper concentrating a fair bit on the sort of the campaign of like anti-terrorism, keeping people safe, and going a little bit negative on that sense. This is like a Morning of America feel to it, with books.
That's what I was saying. That's what I was saying, Marty, in my meeting today. I was like, does anyone remember those Ronald Reagan ads? It's Morning in America again. It had that Morning in Canada kind of feel, right?
Yeah, exactly. So an interesting beginning, and you know, one can only hope that the ads stay this positive, and I can pretty much guarantee they won't, though, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, so, Julie?
Well, he's sitting there reading the paper, so he's up on everything. And if anyone's followed some of the tenure of Stephen Harper, there was always this author who would send him a book and try to get him to read it. It's
Jan
not
Martel,
something.
right.
Yeah, exactly. And you never. It's not kind of what you associate. Like, he wrote a book on hockey, but you don't imagine him being part of a book club. But, you know, Tom Mulcair is sitting there surrounded by books. So the idea, as I said, he's smart, and not only that, he's up on everything. He knows about your concerns. And guess what? When you vote for him, your shop is going to have a closed sign flipped to an open sign. So think about that.
John, what do you think? Is it, you know, Julie keeps mentioning it's like, here I am, I'm Tom Mulcair, I'm smart, I'm maybe part of a book club. Is it a veiled dig at Justin Trudeau, who may not be part of a book club?
I wouldn't read that into it. I think what you always have with the NDP, this goes back all the way to the days of Ed Broadbent, a belief that the NDP always picks the best leader and has the worst policies. And I think first of all, we're getting introduced to Tom Mulcair. For a lot of people who aren't political junkies like us, they really don't know the NDP leader that well. So we're getting introduced to this friendly guy. Yeah, he wears a beard, and that's a bit off-putting. But otherwise, he's a smart smart, friendly guy who cares about the middle class. And again, trying to allay the fears that the NDP are raving socialists who are torpedo foreign policy and tax us all to death. No, he says, you can trust me, I'm a nice guy, and I'm all about the middle class. So it's an attempt to take the sting out of, the fear out of, voting NDP, just as Rachel Notley succeeded in convincing Albertans, of all people, that they shouldn't be afraid to vote for her.
What surprised me is
you also got to wonder if he's making a play for liberal votes in this, because I mean, it's a little bit like a liberal vote, isn't it? A liberal ad. It's basically saying middle class, yes, but all the other good stuff, all in one basket, which is and you know, high-end coffee shop and that kind of stuff, urban voters, etc.
Well, Marty, I was interested in Paul Wells' piece with Brian Mulroney, and this is what Brian Mulroney had to say about Tom Mulcair. He certainly didn't sound like he was scared of a raging socialist. Here's what Brian Mulroney said to Paul Wells of Maclean's magazine. He said, "I don't know Mulcair well, but he is the best opposition leader in my judgment since Diefenbaker, and I think I've known them all pretty well. I think the television debates in the next election may turn out to be the most important since 1984. Wink, wink. That's when Mulroney did quite well. And it is hard to see how anyone is going to best Mr. Mulcair." John, what did you think of that?
Well, of course, it's Brian Mulroney once again quietly having a dig at Stephen Harper. Although, you know, Brian Mulroney helped to unify the right and create the Conservative Party, helped to make Stephen Harper leader. The two have not been friends ever since the Airbus affair, when Stephen Harper basically cut Brian Mulroney dead and told the caucus to do likewise. So Mr. Mulroney is a Conservative, yes, but he thinks that Stephen Harper is neglecting Quebec. He thinks Stephen Harper is more concerned with power than with legacy, with taking tough decisions such as he took when he was Prime Minister. And just personally, there isn't a lot of love lost between the two men. So I think Brian Mulroney is right. I think Thomas Mulcair is a very effective opposition leader. It also helps, as Marty said, whenever you can make this a fight between the NDP on the left and the Conservatives on the right, it's bad for the Liberals in the middle. But I also think it's just, it's Brian Mulroney sticking it to Stephen Harper one more time.
And Marty, I didn't let you get in there. Marty, you go ahead.
I think Brian Mulroney speaking a very cold truth. Mulcair, nobody does moral outrage like Tom Mulcair. He's so good at it. Like, you watch him during question period, etc. You know, I wonder if there's a little bit of gun shyness on the part of the CBC, and that's the reason that they don't want to do these televised debates with him, because he's so effective. And one of the things too is during the last year or so, there's been a fair bit of frustration on the part of the NDP, whereby the Tom Mulcair that we saw so effectively in Parliament didn't sort of translate into the polls. If you put Tom Mulcair on TV in front of Harper, all of a sudden you're outside the Ottawa bubble. You got 10 million eyeballs on you, and that's where he's at his most effective. So I wonder if the CPC is a little bit gun-shy about going up against him.
All right, Julie, can you help us understand where we are with the debate on the debates? Who's in, who's out, where are people going? Because I don't know. I'm starting to lose track of exactly what's going on.
Well, it's a total fricassee. I mean, to follow it, you need some kind of diagram with all the leaders and what they're going to do. I mean, basically right now we have the Conservatives who've shaken things up more so than we've ever seen before by saying we're not playing your game, we're not doing the consortium, and I don't think they're going to change their minds. So they've agreed to do 5 debates, and they've signed on to 4 so far. The Liberals are kind of holding back, saying we'll do the consortium and we'll decide about the rest, because there's something like 20 proposals. And the NDP have said we'll debate Stephen Harper anywhere, anytime, and it's unclear whether they would do a consortium debate if it just involved Justin Trudeau and Stephen Harper wasn't sitting there. So it's like I say, it's a dog's breakfast. So we do have a few months to figure it out. But the bottom line is the guy who shook things up is the guy that's got the most to gain, or so he feels. Stephen Harper and his team would never have suggested this unless they thought there was something in it for him. And what they think is in it for him is that he can wipe the floor with Justin Trudeau as an example in these big debates that are going on about the economy and foreign affairs. And I think he feels he can take his chances you know, with Tom Mulcair on things like Keystone and the economy and Ukraine. He feels that maybe he's more of his equal. And to marginalize Trudeau is to do the Michael Ignatieff, there's you know, a red door and a blue door. It's to their benefit to, certainly to Tom Mulcair's to have it a two-way race and to marginalize Trudeau. And, you know, Stephen Harper just wants Trudeau to talk as much as possible, say something stupid so he can put it in an attack ad.
John, what do you make about the motivations between how each party, each leader is or setting up what they'll participate in and what they won't participate in?
It's high risk, high reward. Julie's right. I think the Conservatives want to marginalize Trudeau as much as possible. They want to make this about the NDP versus the Conservatives. The NDP want to do the same thing. Ironically, as it stands right now, if the Liberals turn down the extra consortium debates and do only the consortium debates, we could have something like 7 debates in which Stephen Harper and Justin Trudeau never once appear on the stage. That will surely shake itself out in between now and then. But I think the other high risk for the Conservatives is if you do 6 or 7 debates, Justin Trudeau is going to get better at them over time, and you're going to have a narrative of, well, he was shaky in the first one, but he got better by the third, and now he's starting to look pretty good on number 5 and 6. And then finally, if Stephen Harper does not participate in the consortium debates, and he will not, he said that, pretty emphatic about it, then you're going to have Justin Trudeau and Tom Mulcair debating on network television. And for everybody, and there's a lot of them, who are determined not to vote for the Conservatives, this is a great opportunity to decide which one of these two is most likely to defeat Stephen Harper and should get their votes. So that could shake things out as well.
All right. The Prime Minister was in Quebec, in Montreal, and he was re-announcing some money for the RCMP and for Canada Border Services Agency. And this followed, of course, the 10 who were arrested, the 10 young Montrealers who were arrested at Pierre Elliott Trudeau and then released because of concerns that they were going to go overseas to join jihadis over there. Let's listen to what the Prime Minister had to say about that.
There is no legitimate reason of any kind in this country for someone to become a violent jihadist or a terrorist or to join any kind of group that is involved or advocates that kind of activity, and it is totally unacceptable to Canada and Canadians, and unacceptable to this government.
All right, so Julie, what do you think is going on there? What's the Prime Minister trying to do in terms of hammering home a message that we've heard before on this kind of thinking and this kind of threat that ISIS poses in his mind?
Well, this is his bread and butter issue. Since he was elected, he's the law and order guy, and this is the biggest law and order stage in the world. Jihadists wreaking havoc both domestically and internationally. You know, the Trudeau airport provided the perfect backdrop for his message, which is, I'm the guy who's going to beat the jihadists, and the other guys don't even want to mention the word. He's got a bunch of young kids from Quebec who are going to go over there. So what better way to tell people is, I'm the guy that's going to take on ISIS. I'm sending my planes over and my other hardware, and I'm part of this coalition. I have a bill that's in the House right now, C-51, that's going to, you know, smack them down. And the opposition, what do they want to do? They want to send over a bunch of blankets. Well, you can't, you know, whack jihadists with blankets. So he's the law and order guy, and he's the guy that is going to protect Canadians. This is his theme. What you saw there is exactly what you'll be hearing in the campaign, unless the whole problem disappears.
And you know, Marty, what I thought was interesting, and I know, John, we won't focus on polls too much, but there was a poll that was done for La Presse that showed the NDP way ahead in Quebec, even in their conservative stronghold of the Quebec City area. Now it's pretty close between the NDP and the Conservatives. And then he spent some time in Gros-Île. Are the Conservatives, do you think, starting to get a little worried about Quebec?
Well, I think, irregardless of those polls, I think he would have seen what Harper said. I think he would have done that at Trudeau airport regardless. I think that's like Julie said, it's a slam dunk. You can't ask for a better media opportunity. The other little dirty secret about all this is, yes, there was those 10 arrests that took place at Trudeau Airport. The other thing is that Bill C-51 is actually far more popular than one might think in Quebec. So that might be another reason for Harper to have come here and done that and hammer home that message. But again, I don't think it has much to do with anything to do with polls, the fact that the NDP are doing well. They were going to do well anyway. I think what you're seeing here is just part of that narrative, that sort of tough on jihadi, tough on crime narrative that we're going to see throughout the election.
John, what do you think in terms of, does the Prime Minister want the conversation to be more about national security?
Well, yes, he wants to be about national security because he's the national security guy. But again, there's a high-risk, high-reward strategy here. The fact is that there is a larger population of Muslim Quebecers than in other parts of the country, and that's because they are brought in from French-speaking countries in Africa. That has caused tensions between the native-born Quebec population and immigrant Muslim populations. Harper, I think, is doing a nudge-nudge, wink-wink to native-born Quebecers, saying that I'm going to be very strong in protecting Canadian values against radical jihadis. The danger is, if that translates outside of Quebec, in, say, the suburban cities around Toronto, into I'm anti-immigrant, then he's going to damage his actual core base, because this Conservative Party relies very heavily on the immigrant vote in suburban Toronto and suburban Vancouver. So it's high reward in Quebec, but it is very risky outside of Quebec.